The dust has settled, another presidential election has come and gone, Donald Trump stands victorious, yet a sense of unease lingers. The Democrats, reeling from defeat, search for a glimmer of hope. In the corridors of power, whispers turn into hushed conversations. A radical idea takes root. Could there be a way to circumvent the seemingly inevitable? This isn't about overturning the election. This is about sending a message. The plan is audacious. Some might even say outrageous. Enter Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist and News Nation contributor. On a night when many of his colleagues are drowning in despair, Bardella throws a lifeline. His idea? President-elect Joe Biden should, after pardoning his son Hunter, step aside, resign, allow Vice President Kamala Harris to assume the mantle of the presidency. The suggestion hangs in the air, electrifying the room. Bardella argues that Biden, with a limited time in office, has nothing left to lose. Why not cement his legacy by ushering in the first female president? Even for a brief period, the impact would be seismic. Imagine Kamala Harris, the daughter of immigrants, a woman of color, taking the oath of office. The reaction is instantaneous and visceral. Social media explodes, a firestorm of opinions erupting across the digital landscape. Hashtags trend, memes proliferate, battle lines are drawn. On one side, a chorus of voices rise in support. They see it as a brilliant power play, a chance to make history and send a powerful message about representation. Then there are the detractors. They scoff, they ridicule, they brand it a desperate attempt to deny Trump his rightful victory. The nation, already deeply divided, finds itself cleaved yet again. Think about it, Bardella urges, his voice rising above the din of the News Nation panel. Joe Biden, a man who's dedicated his life to public service, gets to make one final historic act. He pauses, letting the gravity of the suggestion sink in. He gets to hand the reins to Kamala Harris, shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling, and walk away a legend. The other panelists, initially caught off guard by the sheer audacity of the idea, begin to chime in. Some express cautious intrigue, others outright skepticism. But Bardella presses on, undeterred. He lays out his reasoning point by point like a general strategizing on a battlefield map. This isn't about overturning the election, he insists. It's about seizing a unique moment, a fleeting opportunity to make a statement that will reverberate for generations to come. This is about showing the world that America is ready for a woman of color, to lead. We're talking about a matter of weeks, maybe even days, Bardella continues, his voice taking on a sense of urgency. A small window to make an unforgettable impact. He paces across the stage, his energy infectious. Imagine the headlines, the global reaction, the sheer inspiration it would spark. He paints a vivid picture, his words carrying the weight of history in the making. Kamala Harris, sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, a daughter of immigrants, a symbol of progress, standing behind that resolute desk. His voice cracks with emotion. It's a powerful image, one that would send shockwaves across the country and around the world. This isn't just about symbolism, though, he adds, his voice softening. Back on the panel, Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former acting White House chief of staff, leans forward, a thoughtful expression on his face. Look, he begins, his tone measured, I disagree with just about everything Kurt stands for. A ripple of laughter runs through the studio. But, he continues, raising a hand to silence the chuckles, I can't say this is completely bonkers. Mulvaney, known for his pragmatic approach to politics, acknowledges the potential benefits of the scheme. From a purely strategic standpoint, he explains, it's a brilliant move by the Democrats. They get to claim a moral victory, energize their base, and potentially throw a wrench into Trump's momentum. He pauses, then adds with a wry smile, plus think of the chaos it would cause in the Trump merchandise department. All those 47th president hats would be instantly obsolete. The audience erupts in laughter, the tension momentarily broken, but Mulvaney's amusement is tinged with a hint of caution. Of course, he warns, there's a huge risk involved. The conversation shifts inevitably to the man at the center of it all, Donald Trump. How would he react to such a brazen power play? Would he be amused, enraged, or simply dismissive? Bardella, a mischievous glint in his eye, suggests that Trump would be absolutely livid. Can you imagine, he asks, chuckling, all those Make America Great Again Again hats rendered meaningless? Trump would be apoplectic, tweeting up a storm. But beyond the superficial, there's a deeper, more unsettling question. Would this move further inflame an already volatile political climate? Section 5. Echoes of 25th Amendment discussions. As the debate rages on, some can't help but draw parallels to the whispers of invoking the 25th Amendment during Trump's first term. The idea, then considered radical and far-fetched, now seems almost quaint in comparison to the current proposal. It's amazing how quickly the Overton window has shifted, remarks one commentator, shaking his head in disbelief. What was once unthinkable is now being seriously debated on national television. The fact that such a radical idea is even being considered speaks volumes about the current state of American politics. Section 1. Twitter sphere ignites. Bardella's News Nation appearance becomes a viral sensation, catapulting the audacious plan into the heart of the internet. The Twitter sphere, that digital coliseum of hot takes and fiery debates, explodes with a cacophony of reactions. Hashtags like #Kamala447 and #BidenResign rocket to the top of the trending list, each tweet adding fuel to the raging inferno of online discourse. Supporters of the plan, energized by the prospect of making history, flood the platform with messages of excitement and encouragement. This is brilliant! Let's make it happen! #Kamala Harris, #first female president, proclaims one user. Section 2. A mosaic of memes and mockery. Of course, no viral moment is complete without its fair share of detractors, and the proposed Harris presidency is no exception. Opponents of the plan, many of them ardent Trump supporters, take to Twitter to express their outrage, ridicule, and disbelief. "This is the most pathetic thing I've ever heard," scoffs one user. Their tweet accompanied by a photoshopped image of Harris wearing a crown and sitting on a throne made of participation trophies. Others accuse the Democrats of being sore losers, desperate to cling to power by any means necessary. Amidst the political mudslinging and partisan bickering, a different breed of tweet emerges: the meme. One particular tweet, capturing the zeitgeist of the moment, goes viral for its sheer audacity and unexpected humor. Biden should resign so Harris becomes 47 and Donald has to throw out all his 47 swag, the tweet declares, its simplicity belying its subversive brilliance. The tweet, seemingly born out of a desire to see Trump inconvenienced, resonates with a surprisingly broad audience. Even those who harbor no ill will towards the former president find themselves chuckling at the thought of him being forced to discard a warehouse full of outdated merchandise. The phrase, "ruin his stupid hat," takes on a life of its own, becoming a rallying cry for those who see the proposed power transfer as a way to deliver a symbolic blow to Trump's ego. As the Twitterverse continues to churn, the debate spills over into the real world. Cable news channels dedicate hours of airtime to dissecting the pros and cons of the proposed Harris presidency, with pundits and analysts weighing in from across the political spectrum. Talk radio hosts, their voices thick with indignation or glee depending on their political leanings, urge their listeners to call in and share their thoughts. Water cooler conversations across the country turn to the latest political drama, with colleagues and friends debating the merits of the plan and its potential consequences. The nation, already deeply polarized, finds itself further divided by this latest political bombshell. While the internet buzzes with memes and hot takes, it's important to remember that this is not just some abstract political game. The potential real-world implications of a temporary Harris presidency are significant and far-reaching. Would such a move inspire a new generation of female and minority leaders, or would it further inflame partisan tensions and erode trust in our institutions? These are not easy questions to answer, but as the nation grapples with the ramifications of this audacious proposal, one thing is clear: the stakes have never been higher. The very notion of Kamala Harris, even temporarily, assuming the presidency, ignites a firestorm of debate about legacy. For Biden, it's a chance to etch his name alongside some of history's most selfless leaders, a final act of service crowning a lifetime dedicated to public service. Imagine the history books Biden, recognizing the magnitude of the moment, stepping aside to allow Harris to break the ultimate glass ceiling. But what of Harris's own legacy? A fleeting presidency, while historic, could be seen as a gilded cage. Would she be relegated to a caretaker role, unable to enact her own vision, forever known as the placeholder president? The symbolic weight of a woman of color no less, taking the presidential oath is undeniable. For millions of Americans, it would be a moment of profound emotional resonance, a testament to how far we've come as a nation. Imagine the ripple effect, a surge of inspiration among young girls, particularly girls of color, who finally see themselves reflected in the highest office. The message is clear: America is changing, barriers are crumbling, and anything is possible. Yet some argue that fixating on symbolism risks overshadowing the very real challenges facing the country. Will this historic moment translate into tangible progress on issues like economic inequality, racial injustice, and climate change? The question of what a temporary Harris presidency could actually achieve in terms of policy is a thorny one. With a limited time frame and a potentially hostile Congress, her ability to enact sweeping changes would undoubtedly be constrained. Some advocate for focusing on executive actions, areas where presidential power is at its zenith. Issues like immigration reform, climate change, and criminal justice reform could see swift action, reversing Trump-era policies and setting a new course. Others argue for a more cautious approach, prioritizing symbolic gestures and bipartisan outreach over potentially divisive policy battles. The debate highlights the inherent tension between making a lasting impact and avoiding overreach. The world would be watching, their gaze fixed on Washington as America ushers in its first female president. The implications for America's global standing, already shaky after years of Trump's America First agenda, are significant. Would a Harris presidency, even a temporary one, signal a return to global engagement and multilateralism? Would it repair damaged alliances and restore America's reputation as a beacon of democracy and human rights? Skeptics argue that the global community would see through the temporary nature of the arrangement, viewing it as a desperate attempt to salvage America's image rather than a genuine shift in policy. The world holds its breath, eager to see if this unprecedented move represents a true turning point for America or simply another chapter in its ongoing political drama. The answer, as always, lies somewhere in the unpredictable realm of history yet to be written. The audacity of suggesting Biden step aside for Harris sparks a backlash. Critics branded a participation trophy presidency. The phrase, loaded with connotations of unearned accolades, gains traction. One commentator laments, "Are we handing over the Oval Office just to make a statement?" He shakes his head as if the idea affronts the presidency. Others echo the sentiment, their words laced with anger and disbelief. They argue the presidency should be earned through merit and trust. The criticism cuts deeper than just accusations of political maneuvering. Some argue that the idea Harris needs to be given the presidency is demeaning. It infantilizes a woman who has shattered countless glass ceilings. Are we suggesting a woman who served as a district attorney, senator, and vice president needs to be handed the presidency? The notion undermines Harris's accomplishments and reinforces the sexist trope that women need to be given power. It raises questions about female ambition and societal expectations. The controversy surrounding the proposed Harris presidency also reignites the long-simmering debate about identity politics. Critics argue that the plan is a blatant example of prioritizing identity over qualifications, of putting symbolism ahead of substance. We're so obsessed with checking boxes, one commentator laments, that we've lost sight of what truly matters: competence, experience, and a vision for a better future. He argues that focusing solely on identity risks dividing us further, creating a society where people are judged not by the content of their character, but by the color of their skin or the group they belong to. Supporters of the plan counter that identity is inextricably linked to experience and perspective. They argue that having a woman, particularly a woman of color, in the Oval Office would bring a much-needed and long-overdue perspective to American leadership. The debate highlights the complexity of navigating identity in the political arena. It underscores the need for nuanced conversations about representation, inclusion, and the very nature of leadership in a diverse and ever-evolving society. Critics argue that installing Harris as a temporary figurehead undermines meritocracy. They say it sends a message that success is about checking the right boxes on the diversity checklist. What message does this send to our children? One concerned parent asks. That they should aspire to be judged not by their character but by the circumstances of their birth? The debate strikes at the heart of the American ideal, that anyone can achieve success through hard work and determination. The audacious proposal, the sheer audacity of it all, lays bare the fault lines fracturing American democracy. Here we are grappling with an idea that would have been unthinkable just a few election cycles ago. It's a stark reminder of how far we've strayed from the norms, the traditions, the very bedrock of our political system. The very fact that this debate is happening, that it's consumed the national consciousness, speaks volumes about the state of our union. We are a nation divided, not just by political ideology, but by fundamental questions about fairness, representation, and the very definition of progress. Some see this proposed maneuver as a sign of desperation, a last-ditch effort to cling to power by any means necessary. Others view it as a stroke of political genius, a bold move to shake up the status quo and usher in a new era of representation. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the murky middle. One thing is certain. This debate, far from being merely academic, reflects a deep and growing unease about the future of our republic. The proposed Harris presidency has become a lightning rod for powerful emotions. For some, it represents hope and progress, a sign of embracing a diverse future. For others, it's a symbol of fear, the erosion of traditional values and identity politics. This is a fundamental clash of worldviews, a battle for the soul of America. Both sides weaponize their arguments, turning it into progress versus tradition. Regardless of whether this particular scheme comes to fruition, it has undoubtedly opened a Pandora's box of political possibilities. The very act of imagining such a scenario, of contemplating a temporary transfer of power for strategic purposes, has shifted the Overton window, redrawing the lines of what's considered acceptable, even thinkable, in American politics. This is not just about Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives. It's about a fundamental shift in the way we think about power, about the tools and tactics considered fair game in the pursuit of political goals. The implications are far-reaching. Will this usher in an era of even more audacious political maneuvering, of constantly upping the ante in the quest for an advantage? Will it lead to a further erosion of trust in our institutions, a sense that the rules are constantly being rewritten? Or could it perhaps force us to confront the limitations of our current system, to re-examine the very foundations of our democracy, and consider whether they are still fit for purpose in the 21st century? The proposed Harris presidency, even if it never comes to pass, will likely linger in the collective consciousness, a tantalizing what if that continues to spark debate and inspire reflection. It will serve as a reminder of the fragility of our political system, the power of symbolism, and the enduring allure of the unconventional. Years from now, historians will undoubtedly revisit this moment, dissecting the motivations, the calculations, the hopes and fears that fueled this extraordinary proposition. They will debate its potential impact, its legacy as a symbol of both progress and division. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of this episode will be the questions it raises, questions that transcend partisan politics and touch the very heart of what it means to be an American. Don't miss the bus and subscribe.